Be back again to discuss masculinity, masculine essence, masculine archetypes, and to talk about my book and the different concepts that I discussed there. Thank you so much for joining yesterday. And if you see me look to the side, that means I'm looking at who's here and people are starting to trickle in. And I'm going to discuss any questions that you may have. Just put them in the chat and I will get to those questions. Welcome, welcome. Okay, I see that California is in the house. And I also see someone from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Welcome. And we are going to begin in just a couple seconds here. We're going to allow some more to come in and enter the space. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dr. R.B. Hernandez Cruz, that's my full name, and I'm the author of this book that you see before you, Masculine Revolution, a journey to reclaim your masculine essence through the power of archetypes. And that's what we're going to be discussing here. With a lot of my clients and with people that I speak about this topic, I always get the response that, wow, that is so needed today. And so my question to you all is why? Why do you think it's needed or not? I mean, I welcome both sides of the conversation. So why do you think it's needed? And maybe why you think it's not needed? Or maybe you think it's a topic that is overused and discussed way too frequently. And so that's something that we can also talk about. I'm also going to give you a little bit of a background of the book. And I decided today I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. And so that will also, I hope, open up some discussions as well. Thank you for joining from New York. Oh, and I see someone here from Madrid. Bienvenidos. Welcome, welcome. So yesterday I had sent an invite to the UK. We might see some of our UK folks kind of trickle in. Okay, so I'm going to first give you a little bit of a background. This book is actually a book that has taken me probably around 13 years to bring it to life. Originally, this book was made to be a thesis that I was presenting when I was completing my Jungian training. And so I was presenting this as a thesis. And then things happen in life and that never happened. I was never able to defend my thesis there at that specific institute. And so I just sat on this book for a long time. And every time I spoke about this book to other people, they all told me the same thing. It's very much needed. You need to get this book out there. And so I just continued sitting on this book, partly because I think it was just a very emotional book to write. It's a combination of personal experiences as well as concepts, psychological concepts. And so years later, or time had passed, I should say, and I was referred to an editor from McGraw-Hill in New York. And we started taking a look at the material again. It was originally made for a thesis, so it was very academic, loaded with lots of references, and I had a whole literature review. And so one of the things that we started to do is kind of unpack that. And the question was, how can we make this material or this content easily digestible for everyone and not just for someone in academia? So that was the first thing that we had to do. And her name was Donna. And Donna was very instrumental to help me through this. Donna, if by chance you are listening to this, thank you, thank you, thank you. And she was the first really instrumental to kind of help me to turn this around and make it more digestible. And during my practice, I began to see a lot of clients that had different challenges that had to do with the masculine. And these were mostly male. And I say mostly male because I did have a couple of female clients and non binary clients that we could also see that there was some masculine energy, masculine archetypes coming up to the surface in our work. And so, after going through that experience with my clients, it was almost like a reminder that I had to get this book completed and get it out there. And so again, I sat and I went back and forth with the my editor Don at the time, and then COVID happened, and I think, like with most people, COVID not only kept us indoors, but for some of us, it kept us inside in our inner world, and it was just a very difficult time. So a lot of things came to a halt. And it wasn't until I began to go back and forth between my home in northern Spain and my home in Miami that I started to really think about things recently in the last year, that I definitely had to get this book out into the world and give it life. And so that is what I've been doing. And of course, I had to go back and rewrite a lot of the content to make it more applicable to today's world. And what I mean by that is to include a lot of the current challenges that we all face. And for example, I'm referring to the Me Too movement that occurred, as well as this movement with the transgender community and those that are more fluid in their sexual identification. All of that I wanted to include in some way or another into this book, or at least make the contents applicable to those in that community. And so, because I do believe, if you were with me yesterday, you would know that for me, masculinity is something that we have to be conscious of. It's something that is an underlying energy within all of us, regardless of gender. So it's not just based on gender. Gender has some play with that, and it's colored by it, or masculinity is colored by gender, I should say. However, it is in each and every one of us. And so, one of the things that I'll also kind of reiterate from yesterday is that we are dealing with specific energies that are kind of in the unconscious, and they're kind of there sort of like underneath. And these energies tend to influence us, especially when we are not conscious and when we're not aware. Then we tend to be influenced by these energies, or these forces, if you will. Yesterday, I kind of equated that a little bit to how people view astrology, where they kind of say, well, today is like this because, the sun is here and the moon is here, or we're in retrograde or what have you. So it's something similar to that. And again, my hope is that you're not caught up with the terminology. The terminology is always a way for us to explain something that is difficult to explain, what Carl Jung called a phenomena. So when there's a phenomena, it means that it's just difficult to kind of wrap our heads around it. So we come up with these words and these terms for that. So in this book, I'm calling it an archetype because that's what Carl Jung called it, and that's what I'm calling it as well. But besides that, think of it more as this flow of underlying energy that we could get caught up in. I also mentioned yesterday, it's very similar to how when you are in the grips of a very strong emotion, let's say you became angry for some particular reason, and that anger was so intense that you became taken over by it. Yesterday, I used the words possessed, and of course, that can have its own connotations, but really it's when you lose a sense of control, you lose consciousness. Consciousness is where we have control. We all have control over our behavior if we're conscious. If we lose consciousness and we become gripped by this underlying powerful emotion, then we find that we end up doing things that we later regret when we're back in consciousness. So, this is something that is definitely like that when I talk about these archetypes. And these archetypes that I'm referring to are masculine archetypes. So they're archetypes that have a masculine type of energy to that. And masculine energy, if you will, has shifted from culture to culture. However, I don't I don't want to say that it's shifted in the sense that it's one thing to one culture and one thing to another. What I see happening is I think that one culture is more gravitated to one type of masculine archetype and another culture to another masculine archetype. And that's something that I go a little bit into this book. But this book is not about using psychobabble or very this, psychological strong language with words and long words and academic words. No, I've this book is really about a way that we can all grasp the meaning behind masculinity and masculine essence that I'm trying to propose here. And so today we're seeing a lot of this masculine energy at play. For example, we have two wars that we're looking at that are in the news, and these are two wars that have been made public in the news. There's other battles and other wars happening in the world, but the two, Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East, those are some things that have been brought up to the forefront. And so that's something that we could definitely see masculine energy, masculine archetype at play. We also have other ways of seeing masculine archetype at play. For example, in the United States, in the political arena, we're seeing the idea of age come into play in politics when we talk about the United States president, for example. Is he too old to serve? The other contender that's going to be most likely running against the current president is also in the same boat. So the issue of age has come up, and what they represent as these male figures who are at a certain age, that has something to do with masculine archetypes and the energy that I'm talking about. So those are some of the things that we find in today's world that I think lends itself and to speak for itself. One of the issues, for example, in Spain that's happening currently, which kind of surprised me after I started to be more in Spain because of the house that I have, is the issue of how there's a big problem with domestic violence in Spain. And, granted, the population is a smaller population. So anything that happens is going to be exposed much more rapidly in the news. But I was really surprised to hear on the news the number of violence towards women and things that happen towards women. So again, that's another related issue, at least the way that I'm viewing it, that's related to masculine archetypes and masculine energy. And so those are some of the things that I'm really passionate about discussing, and that's a lot of those elements are in the book. And so one of the things that I want to, and I see some people have some questions, which I will definitely get there. So please, hold on to those questions. I will go there. I want to first basically do like a little excerpt reading, and I think this might be helpful as well. So here we go. Have you struggled greatly with masculinity for what seems like forever? Have you struggled with perceiving what it means to be masculine in the eyes of society, family, and friends. Have you ever felt that there was more to masculinity and that it's a layered thing with many dimensions as opposed to being a one-dimensional, one-size-fits-all dynamic? If so, you're not alone. I've been there, and countless men have been there and continue to be in your position. This book is written precisely for you and others like you. From my perspective, as somebody who's had similar struggles to yours and had to revise his perspective on the subject, the perspective that society pushed on him and everyone else around him. So I want to stop there. Have you had that struggle where you feel society has pushed onto you a certain perspective? And what I mean by that is a certain perspective on how you are to live, how you are to act, how you are to dress, how you are to be. Have you felt that society has pushed that on you? Now, naturally, if you live in a location where there's more of a social, it's more homogenous socially. So in other words, people at that location are very similar to each other, and they're very similar in the way that they grasp that local culture. And they're very similar on how they are or how they act or how they dress or how they are as far as their being. Then it's most likely the pressure will be higher. And what I mean by that is the pressure will be higher to conform to this accepted sense of culture. If you are living in a larger city where it's much more cosmopolitan, then you're going to have a variety of these social norms, a variety of what is expected as quote unquote normal or acceptable. Then the pressure is going to be less because there's a lot more of what's included in what is socially acceptable. Okay. And nowadays we're seeing a push towards more of a homogeny or more of a homogenous culture. So we're seeing more of a push for that. And I think this is now an opinion that I have based on my work and based on what I see. I really think it has to do with us as humanity searching for community. So even though we have become very independent, and especially in the Western world where the idea of being independent and being an individual is so important, I think the other side of the shift, or the opposing polarity, if you want to look at it like that, is community, being with our family and being in community. And so because we have this drive for community because we're human. Humans are not meant to be islands. We're not meant to be 100% independent. We're just not. It's an illusion to think that I did it all on my own. No. A good friend of mine, Beata Padlo, who currently has a wonderful, amazing podcast about teams, she said something that really struck a chord in me and it stayed with me. And that's that if you believe that you've made it on your own, or if you believe that you've done it independently, that's an illusion. We all have succeeded with others, and we all have done it within a team, or in this case, within a community. And so we are dependent on each other as human beings to succeed. We're dependent on each other to make this world a better place. I mean, that's just how it is. And so going back to what I just read, this excerpt, Have you been one of them? Have you been one of those that has been pressured by society? Have you been one where society pushes onto you, again, you got to look like us, you got to dress like this, you have to be this way, you have to talk this way? Have you? How does that feel like? What is that like? And that's what I go into in this book. And so it is my hope that as you read the book and you go through it, my experience and the concepts I'm presenting to you, I hope resonate with you. And I hope that they shed some light and get you to reflect. In many ways, this book, at the end of each chapter, I have some questions that I would like for you to reflect on and even journal as we go deeper into masculinity and masculine essence and what does that mean. Okay, so I'm going to now go into some of the questions that I want to touch base here. So let's go do that. And if you have any other questions besides the ones that I'm giving you, please add those to the chat. I see some here, and I will touch upon that, and I'm going to refer to them. Some of them are very similar to what I'm seeing in the chat as well. So as I answer some of these, I'm thinking that they're going to answer for a lot more people. Okay, so let's get started. My first question is, how do you define masculinity in today's society? And has this definition evolved over time? And so this is a very similar question as what I answered yesterday. And I'll say it in a different way. So today, masculinity is really often misunderstood because it's very limited. So it's kind of looked upon in narrow terms. And so my job here in this book is to open it up, make it a little more broad to include what I call these masculine archetypes or the masculine energy that we see here. And these are energies that people can use because we carry them just because we're human. And so I think in today's society, we're looking at a couple of masculine energies, if you will, in a very restrictive way. And some of them are just very polarizing. So we'll see someone that's like, embodying this energy, and we'll see someone embodying another energy. One of the things that I mentioned yesterday as well is that there are the positive, healthy aspects to some of these energies, and there are the shadow parts, or the parts that are darker, more sinister, evil, if you will. And an example of that, I spoke about the king energy. And so the shadow side of the king would be the tyrant. And that's what one of the elements we're dealing with today is this idea of should we give up our power to one person who seems to know better than we do about how to live our lives in exchange for safety? So the tyrant usually provides safety. And the tyrant will keep you safe at all costs, will keep the bad people out and only have the good people in. And we are going to be a country of good people. That is all part of the tyrant energy. So we feel safe. So in that aspect, it feels good. But in the other aspect, when we start to look at it, we're like, wait a minute, this is almost like a nice cage. Everything's really nice and comfortable, but it's a cage. And we're allowing ourselves to be prisoners. So that's one aspect of that. Let me get to another question. These 30 minutes really fly. And by the way, I'm here every night or every afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I'm at 3:30 U.S. Eastern Time, which is 12:30 in the Pacific Coast in California and Oregon and Washington, as well as it'll be 9:30 in Europe. Another question, what inspired you to write this book on masculinity and its archetypes? That's a good question. So really it's about my personal journey as I had to put this together for my thesis. That's the first part. So if any of you have ever participated of studying Jungian or analytical psychology, even if you study the Freudian schools or object relations or any of those what we call depth psychology schools, because we go more into the unconscious aspect, then you'll know that it's very deep. You go very deep, and there's a lot of time spent on developing oneself because you do go deep. And so I had to put all these things together. You're also, when you attend any of these institutes, you usually have to be an analysis. So you have to see someone that's an analyst from either 1 to 4 times a week, depending on the school. And so you really go deep into a lot of these areas. For me, it was going deep into this masculine energy, masculine archetypes that I had to experience in my life. So that's why I was inspired to start the book as a thesis. And now I'm inspired to transform this book into a way that's helpful for many dealing with various types of masculine energy in today's world. Let me get one. There's right now we have 5 minutes left, but I want to get to one more. How does the book address challenges in men, or I'm sorry, how does the book address the challenges men face in modern society? And so I'm going to answer this that the book is very nuanced. The book is about understanding masculinity, as well as it provides strategies to go deeper, strategies to help you develop your own masculine energy within you. And that could be you as a young man trying to exert his force in the world. It could be you as a single mother who has to raise her children and be forceful in today's world. There are different ways of demonstrating this very strong and powerful energy. So my book addresses the challenges that men specifically face, because I think men, I would say probably since the sexual revolution, when the shadow side of the masculine energy was addressed, which was this macho man, the man that's a bully, the man that overexerts his power and tends to diminish women or objectify women, or use women in a way that takes away their voice, their power, their freedom. All of that is the shadow side. And one of the things that I refer in the book is when I talk about boy psychology, which is another topic. I might touch upon that this week. But yeah, so my book really goes into this idea of, if you're a man in today's world, you need to really get in touch with your masculine energy. We've been hearing for decades now that men need to get in touch with their feminine. And I can understand why it's being said, but I disagree with that that's what men have to do today. I think men need to get in touch with their healthy, positive, masculine energy, their masculine essence. They need to go back and reconnect with that, because I think that's what's missing in the world. And when we don't have healthy masculine energy, what we're going to have is the shadow side. We're going to have this energy that can be destructive, this energy that can be abusive. And that's really what I'm going towards here. And that's one of the purposes of my book, is to touch upon that. Well, we've reached the end here. I didn't get to everyone's questions, but I will continue to answer the chats even after this live is over. Again, remember, tomorrow we're back here at 3:30 US Eastern Time, 12:30 in the Pacific Coast, and it's going to be at 9:30 and the 9:30 in Central Europe, and 8:30 if you live in the UK or the Canary Islands or in Portugal. So Um, and I'll answer this also right before we leave. A lot of you have been asking if there's going to be an audible, if this is going to be an audible. And that's something that I am working on so that after we launch on October 21st, because that's our launch day. So I'm doing a pre-launch here with you all. And remember, the first 10 will receive a free copy. So if you go to the website, there's a link, and somewhere you will get to the website, which is discoveringmyself.com. So www.discoveringmyself.com. You'll get to the website. You can't miss it. There's a big pop-up that allows you to submit your request. And I haven't looked at the list, but the first 10 will receive a free copy of the book. And I'll announce those people on Friday, which will be the last day that we do this. So thank you so much for joining us and joining me on this live talking about Masculine Revolution, a journey to reclaim your masculine essence through the power of archetypes. This is Dr. RB. It's been certainly a pleasure. We will be speaking again tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.